It flew without wings. And from the moment it appeared, the mystery began.
We have an object that presents very advanced technology.
I'm a little nervous, I'll be honest. I feel like something extraordinary is going on.
It's certainly real. It's using an energy field, a type of anti-gravity effect.
I think I have a responsibility to investigate it.
After I took the sphere from the place, I looked around the area and all the grass around it was dried up.
The sphere contains cutting-edge technology such as fiber optics for space communication.
It only weighed 2 kilos when the sphere was handed to me. Today, it weighs 10 kilos.
When scanning the surface of the sphere, the engravings do not appear so that we can scan them.
What is that implying?
There is a theory that we are working on.
2 men tried to take the sphere. Is that unusual, or is that exactly what we should have expected in this situation?
Our national security state people are going to be extremely interested in this.
Is it non-human technology, or is it man-made?
It's no human technology. There is no question in my mind. This could change our future. For the first time ever, it's in the hands of civilians.
I'm guest host Josh Golombeski, and this is Cosmic Disclosure. How can a perfectly round metallic sphere with no wings, no seams, and no visible propulsion fly? Witnesses in Colombia observed the object gliding with purpose until it struck high-voltage power lines and dropped to the ground. What they recovered wasn't just unusual, it was unlike anything we've ever seen. Smooth, metallic, and etched with unknown markings and symbols. The object now known as the Buga Sphere has become the center of a growing mystery. In this special edition of Cosmic Disclosure, I travel to Mexico City, where a major press conference has brought this extraordinary artifact to the world stage, raising a single question at the heart of it all. What is the Buga Sphere, and who or what sent it? Danny, thank you for being here today.
Terrific.
So you have a very long, very celebrated legal career. What made you interested, or why or how did you get involved with the Buga Sphere investigation?
I got called by Jaime. Jaime called me like middle of the night somewhere, and he said, "Danny," he said, "look, they've just found this sphere. Let me show you. I'm going to send you on the phone right now. I want you to look at it. You know that this little sphere was flying all around this little town down in Colombia." And he said, "I want you to look at it, and then I'm going to call you right back." So I said, "All right." So I go to the phone, and there it is, flying all around this little town, right? And then I see it hit and go down. You know, it hit this high tension wire. He went down, and then they showed the guy run and pick it up. And I said, "Wow, these is great footage." And he calls me back, and he said, "Look," he said, "I'm going to go get this thing." He said, "They called me, and I'm going to go get it." And I said, "Good, get it." I said, "Now look," I said, "be really careful now about maintaining the chain of custody on this. You've got the video of the guy actually going and picking it up. You know who that guy is. Find out from him who else has had this in their possession." Okay, because we have to maintain the chain of custody on this, just like in a legal case. And you want to involve directly the University of Mexico. You want to have a university facility be part of the coalition that's working on this, is the juridical entity. And he said, "Will you help put that together for us?" And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And what you're going to do is set up what would be a United States 501c3 public interest organization. You know, nobody's going to be invested in it. Nobody's going to make any money on it. That's absolutely clear. Okay, this is going to be a completely nonprofit making operation. Nobody's going to try to get hold of the technology or develop it or make money on it. And it's all going to be open source. Then he called me and he said, "Look, I need you to come down here." Then what we're going to do is we're going to have a press conference down here. We're going to organize this. We're going to have a big press conference. He says, "Will you come down and be there?" I said, "Jaime, anything you want."
On June 20th, 2025, acclaimed investigative journalist Jaime Maussán convened a major press conference in Mexico City to present initial scientific findings surrounding the object now known as the Buga Sphere, a mysterious flying sphere recovered in the town of Buga, Colombia. The event drew notable guests, including US Congressman Eric Burlison, disclosure advocate Dr. Stephen Greer, and constitutional attorney Daniel Sheehan. each adding their own voice to the growing call for a deeper investigation into the sphere's origin and purpose.
I would like to introduce to you our friend. This is the Buga Sphere. It's a sphere that is in hands of civil society for the first time. It was filmed while it was levitating over the city of Buga in Colombia, very close to Cali. And that fortunately, the people who were filming this sphere saw it descend just a few feet away, and they were able to recover it. It's a sphere that has been tested preliminarily in Mexico by scientists. I am very excited, I am very proud to come to this point in my career where finally I can exhibit an anomalous object in my own perspective is a non-human device. And if we can prove this scientifically, we've taken a larger step for the acceptance that we are not alone in this universe, that we are being visited, and that we are many of different societies, civilizations that exist out there in the universe. I think the time is now to accept this reality.
Much of what we know now about the Buga Sphere began with Jose Restrepo, a resident of Buga, Colombia. He was the first to encounter the object after it fell, recovering it from the ground and bringing it into public awareness, setting the investigation in motion.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this invitation. My name is Jose Restrepo. I'm the person who found the sphere. So the video is authentic? Of course it's authentic, and you can see it with the close-up. When I was right next to it, the sphere started humming, and that's when I turned around and looked at it, and that's when I started filming. You have high voltage lines nearby. The sphere got too close to the lines. These high voltage lines transmit electricity at 10,000 volts. There's a small spark, and I saw how it impacted the sphere. I listened to the short circuit. I was getting ready to go, and when I realized all the grass was dried up, it was sitting on the grass for 15 minutes, and it dehydrated the grass. When I got a hold of it, it was so impressive that I did get a little bit scared, but I also felt internal peace, a signal which is peaceful.
I also had the opportunity to sit down with Jose Restrepo for a one-on-one interview. In this conversation, he shared personal reflections and details not covered in the press conference. Jose, you're the guy who found the sphere. That must have been an incredible moment.
It fell into a very steep ravine. When I first got it, it weighed 2 kilos. When I first pick it up, I just look at it, but I don't know what's inside of it. And I take this sphere and I place it in a safe space while I get the gear to actually move it around. Funny enough, after I took the sphere from the place, I looked around the area and all the grass around it was dried up.
Did you have any effects after you held the sphere, after you gave it away? Did you go through anything else in your body, emotionally or physically?
I lost my fingerprints. My mouth tasted like aluminum. I had nausea, headaches, and dizziness. But it was only 2 days with those symptoms.
What do you believe, in your heart of hearts, what the sphere was or is?
Something wonderful. And I'm happy with it. And it gives me peace.
After keeping the sphere for a couple of days, Jose passed it to his cousin, David Velez, an engineer with an electronics lab in Colombia. Intrigued by the object's unusual properties, David began running preliminary tests. What he found raised even more questions and quickly drew attention from far beyond his local community.
Good afternoon. The person who found the sphere is Jose. He's my first cousin. I have a small electronic lab, and we did electronic tests on it, and it did emanate a frequency, 125, and it did represent an antenna that transmitted signals like a radio, which varied from 80 to 120 to 75 back to 80. It's a different type of communication that isn't seen in our radio waves. What was also incredible regarding this sphere is that when it was delivered to me by Jose, it only weighed 2 kilograms. I weigh it once again. When I put it on the scale, it didn't weigh 2 kilograms anymore. The weight had increased to 6.65 kilograms. This is incredible. I was truly impressed because the sphere was increasing in weight. It had no cables, no electronics, nothing that we could analyze. It's a high-density aluminum. This was absolutely eccentric. We knew this was a non-human artifact. And that's where we started being contacted by UFO researchers and journalists to offer us money. And I'd like to make this public. They tried to bribe me directly from Spain through 3 different organizations, NGO companies, which I will not say their name, which it would be negative. And they offered me a great amount of money for the sphere. I said, it's not for sale, period. And that's how I answered each of those petitions. And Maussán says, you're acting ethically. When they started threatening me, literally, they called me up and said, if you don't deliver the sphere, such and such is going to happen to you. I have an audio that I recorded where somebody was threatening me during 8 minutes, saying that we are the owners of this sphere. It's our artifact. We reversed engineered it. And what we are able to do it is levitate it. And it flew 350 meters away from our territory. It's ours. Please give it back. Everybody was spying on me. Actually, it was very crazy because I felt threatened by different people from different countries. One person would say that this is fake. Another person would say that this is theirs. We knew this was a non-human artifact. We need to investigate it. And with respect, I gave the sphere to Jaime Maussán for further study. Thank you, Mr. Maussán. Thank you.
So you seem like you were the right guy to get handed this sphere. So walk me through this. Your cousin finds the sphere and he gives it to you. You were in possession for 2 months. What was the most fascinating or interesting thing you learned or that happened to you during those 2 months?
The most shocking thing about the sphere was its weight. It only weighed 2 kilos when the sphere was handed to me. 15 days later, it went up to 6 kilos. Later, it grew all the way to 9 kilos. And today, it weighs 10 kilos.
How do you explain that?
It lost its anti-gravitational system. This system was thrown into a wreck after it got shocked by the high-voltage cables that it crashed into. The place where it landed, it dried up every single bit of grass where it crashed, and the grass never grew back. The sphere went into quarantine to avoid any risks with the workers of the company. After quarantine, we removed our lead suits, and we were able to handle the sphere as regular people. That's when we got scared. After we poured water into it, the water evaporated, and it's documented. The levitation system that the sphere had, it probably had a few shocks into it, still a little bit of use after the water dried that we poured into it.
Were you able to activate the sphere at all?
No. That's why I saw myself in the position to hand it over to experts that would actually know what they're handling, because this wasn't something regular human made. I discovered the hardness of the outer shell of the sphere because we tried to run some tests into it and we couldn't do it. And it has the hardest aluminum we know so far. It's a whole different alloy than the one industries use.
So based off everything you've seen, all the data that you've researched, and what you're seeing today with the further scientific research, what do you think we're dealing with? What is it?
We're dealing with an artifact that belongs to non-human intelligence.
We now know the Buga Sphere is not one of a kind. Similar spheres have been recorded globally, suggesting an ongoing pattern of sightings. But no other footage has matched the clarity or significance of what came next. Just a few months after the Buga sighting, on June 7, 2025, a nearly identical object appeared in Yumbo, Colombia, only 40 miles from Buga. Captured on video by construction contractor William Zuniga, the sphere once again appeared to approach high-voltage power lines before dropping behind the sugarcane, briefly hidden from the camera's view.
Now I'd like to introduce William Antonio Zuniga, who personally decided to make this public. Good afternoon, everyone. I ran into this phenomenon at the township of Yumbo. This is a sugarcane plantation right here. That's where the sighting was made. And you can hear the sound that the sphere is making when it gets close to the sugarcane. When we heard the whoosh, I saw the sphere going up from the sugarcane crops. And by the time I brought up my phone and I started recording, the sphere had already approximated some high-tension cable wires. I don't know why I was interested in the lines. And then it goes down into the sugarcane field. It makes a whooshing sound. And while it's rotating, while I'm filming it, I can see the ring around the sphere.
I got called by Jaime. He called me a while later and said, you know, there's another one. There's another one flying around down by Colombia, the same place. And I said, that's great. I said, you know, we've got the great advantage here of having not only one in custody, but another one still operational. I said, so this is what you really want to have.
With 2 sightings confirmed, the need for scientific analysis grew stronger. Engineer Rodolfo Garnido, a materials specialist based in Mexico, led that effort, conducting an independent evaluation of the Buga Sphere's structure and composition. His analysis revealed something unexpected, a structure that defied standard manufacturing and hinted at origins not yet understood.
We got in touch with Mexico's Autonomous University, and as Rodolfo Garrido will confirm, the results are absolutely extraordinary. Welcome, Rodolfo. Thank you. I would like to share all of the results from the investigations that were made in situ. The first study that we realized is a magnetic field research, if it had one. But there's zero magnetic field, which is emanating right now. So now we're going to do a metallurgical analysis on the sphere. We marked 4 different zones, one at the northern hemisphere, one at the southern hemisphere, and one at the equator. We polished them to reach the first layer of the metal. And we realized that there's different thicknesses around the sphere. That means the northern hemisphere is thicker than the southern hemisphere. In fact, the central part has got different metallurgical properties than the southern and northern hemispheres. And then there's something that is quite interesting. When we started researching the central part of the sphere, we began to realize that there are certain cracks and that there was something inside those cracks. And we got 6 milligrams of samples from the sphere, which we put under an electron microscope. And what we saw was motivating. We discovered the following. What you're witnessing right here, fiber optics at different diameters. But if there's different diameters on each fiber, then each one has its own function. Everything from communication to satellite communication as well. If there's any doubt that these are fiber optics, then we took the fiber optic to the electron microscope and we measured the diameter of the fiber optics and the composition. And the composition talks about oxalate, silicate, and zinc. We also saw a coating that enveloped the metal. It was like a polymer coating, and it's made of carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. So the fiber optics, what's inside the fiber optics, is nothing new. It goes hand in hand with what we know about fiber optics, and it's present within the Buga Sphere. This gives us the first solid step, and the next step is not going to be done randomly. We're going to base ourselves on different institutions, different research studies, so that we obtain scientific results.
As a scientist, right now, based off your work and all the available data, what do you think we're dealing with here?
Something extraordinary. The sphere contains cutting-edge technology such as fiber optics. The functions of the fiber optics are to observe a lot of things, even space communication. The fibers from 300 to 400 microns are used to sense what happens in the atmosphere. The fibers of 100 to 150 microns can sense biomolecules just like our cells. The question is, if everything can be sensed, why do they want it for? What is the intelligence actually doing? Where is it going to? Those are the questions we are asking.
So right now, it is suggesting something highly anomalous, but it's too early to tell exactly what it is.
The next step is to study every bit of the fiber optics within the Buga Sphere, and at the same time, a device is being made that will make the sphere spin at various speeds. When you spin the electrical reactive materials inside of the sphere, you will generate high currents of electricity, generally static. That can only be done if you spin the sphere. If we made the right static and the right amount of it, we could make it levitate.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No. This is the first one I've ever seen in my life that has no seams.
It's my own theory of how this sphere operates. And when I witnessed the videos, the first question I asked myself was, where's the energy source so that it levitates? Where is that energy source? Engineer Avila didn't detect any batteries. We only saw a nucleus with 3 different densities, which I would like to share with you. This is the nucleus, and it's real. This is an image that was made of the sphere. When I saw this, I asked myself, once again, where's the energy source for it to levitate? I was reminded of Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla experimented with his famous tower, the Wonder Cliff. As you can tell, this Tesla tower, if you see it vertically, you can see that there's a tube that goes down the center, which is an electrical conductor. It goes underground, and we have certain pallets that are being generated with the current. It generates an electric current, and it's distributed up top. And when the plates move, it generates the necessary charge. So then I asked myself the following. What if we grabbed the Tesla tower and we inserted it into the sphere? These charges are going to be distributed throughout the sphere. But what if we make it rotate so there's friction at the center? So when we start to make the sphere rotate, we start generating different fields. It was in 1832 that Charles Darwin, he discovered spiders on his boat. He thought that the spiders were being transported by the wind currents, but it was opposite from what Tesla knew. What really happened with those spiders going on to Darwin's ship is the following. You see how the spiders shoot up in the air? The spider fixes itself onto the trunk, which has negative charges. And then the static makes the spider rise because there's a difference in potential. And that's why the spiders levitate as such. And they can travel for thousands of kilometers. And the only way of having them stop is by cutting their spider webs all together. But they're using the spider web as a rail and static as a fuel. If you generate a current, it will generate an electric charge which will be eventually discharged. They are being moved due to static. We can do a comparison of a spider flying through the air with the Buga Sphere. Look how they're levitating in the same fashion. We suspect that the sphere is levitating thanks to static fields that are reacting with the atmosphere. This is the reason why, if it touches high voltage wires, it's going to be discharged, causing disequilibrium on the inside, and it descends. And when we start to make it spin and when we create friction on the interior of the sphere, it creates electricity, it creates static, and we assume that it will levitate.
Adding to the investigation, David Avila Roldan, a chemical engineer and CEO of a Mexican company specializing in automotive components, conducted a detailed analysis of the sphere's material composition. His tests revealed highly refined, industrial-grade alloys with no welds, no seams, and no signs of conventional fabrication, raising even more questions about how the object was made and by whom.
The main objective of this research and the tests that we conducted is to identify what type of technology was used to fabricate this sphere. We realized that it's made of aluminum with a high purity level. At the bottom part of the sphere, we see a pattern, a percussion pattern that we see as part of the moons. And the etchings were made with physical tools made from silicate carbon. And where we have the perforations or the points, I think we have a polymer here. And with the microphotographic study, it tells us that this polymer is protected. It's coated with an unknown material which we have not identified.
So David, one of the aspects of the Buga Sphere that really fascinates me is these etchings. The etchings are, as you described, they look like they were hand-drawn. Is that correct?
Yes, the marks were made with a pointed striker. The strikes were probably made of silicon carbide and were struck, let's say like the moons, because that's the only place where there's a percussion.
Is it possible that the sphere itself, the technology within it, is non-human intelligence, but just the etchings are made by humans?
Yes, that's more likely. That the technology used for the interior of the sphere may be from a being that is half human and half extraterrestrial.
If the sphere itself is ET tech, and there's all these inscriptions on it, that means potentially, once upon a time, it came down to the ground and a culture got its hands on it. Is that what we're suggesting here?
Everything points to this sphere having been manufactured in ancient times. By whom? We don't know. But it was with a very simple manual engraving process on the surface, made by casting in wet sand in stages, but with a lot of technology inside it. And we can see this at the equator of the sphere, where fiber optics have already been detected.
Like right now, based off all the data you've seen in your own investigation, what is the most anomalous or interesting thing about this sphere?
We didn't talk about this feature in the conference, but I want to tell you that for me, the most fascinating thing is that when scanning the surface of the sphere, the engravings do not appear in the point cloud so that we can scan them. At first, we thought it was the resolution of the scanner because we were working at 0.7 millimeters. We increased the resolution to 0.5 millimeters and still couldn't record those engravings.
So what does that mean? What is that implying?
There is a theory that we are working on, but we still have a lot of work to do. We need to try to find the origin of this effect that is being caused by the inside of the sphere. What I have observed is that it not only affects the 3D scanner, it also affects the temperature, and it also affected us in terms of hardness.
No one could confidently determine the meaning of the symbols on the sphere. An AI analysis couldn't find a match in the existing language databases. But Dr. Stephen Greer, a retired physician and longtime advocate for UFO disclosure, shared a fascinating take in response.
And I'd just like to recognize the courageous people who picked it up and brought it. Now, there have been spheres found before, and in the United States, special forces thugs go in and get them. and people have been killed possessing them. Very smart that you keep it safe and that you also disclose it. It's transparent. Everything goes out. My assessment of this is pending, but it's certainly real. It's using an energy field and what we probably would say is electrogravitic, which means a type of anti-gravity effect from the electromagnetic forces. And whether it is of purely extraterrestrial origin or a mix of an ancient human extraterrestrial development. And I just want to share, 2 days ago, we debriefed a Green Beret he was in a subterranean facility, Crane, Indiana. It's a naval weapons station. And this is a top Green Beret, not many years ago. And he was taken underground, very deep, and it was shown several extraterrestrial devices, one of which had a device, like a translucent, almost like a small iPad, but extraterrestrial. And it was putting up above that screen a series of letters or symbols, deep ink black. And they are on this sphere, 4 or 5 of them. So it's very unusual. Now this gentleman, he didn't have any association with those symbols until he saw this sphere. But he said these are exactly the symbols that were floating above this device in the air, about a foot. And that they had some effect in his awareness, and he thought it had something to do with activation of DNA and consciousness, some very unusual effect.
Coincidentally, weeks before the conference, I had interviewed Randy Anderson for an upcoming episode of Cosmic Disclosure, and this is what he had to say regarding the symbols.
We went through another security checkpoint, and that was very odd because we already went through a high-level security checkpoint, and then went into another hallway and walked up to a room that had a placard on the wall that said off-world technology.
Really?
The room was probably about maybe 30 feet long, maybe 20 feet wide. And there were 2 cubicles that were facing towards us as we entered. And in that first cubicle, there was an object and a podium below it. And as I looked at it, the object above the podium was a sphere, a metallic sphere. And it was hovering above the podium. It was under it, and there was no contact between those 2 things. That was the first thing that I noticed.
So just a pure metallic sphere. Roughly how big?
About the size of a basketball.
Can you please describe what else you saw in the room?
So we walked down a little. They started walking ahead of us, and we followed them down a little further. And I noticed there was another object in the next section over, and it was sitting on a black table, about 3 foot off the ground.
And what was it?
Just a rectangular metal object.
What about it made it seem anomalous or different, or made you think?
It was just an odd looking object. It's just oddly shaped, oddly looking. The way the corners were. I mean, it's difficult to describe. I'm pulling on a memory from a while ago, but as I'm looking at it, I could see symbols start to appear above where that LCD screen was.
Symbols.
Yeah, so like hieroglyphic lettering, but the strange thing about the letters were they were real crisp, almost inky black, almost like a dark ink, but very crisp. You can make out what they were, very clear. But there's nothing I'd ever seen, no symbols that I'd ever seen before that.
So from what I understand, these symbols, you've done some sketches of them. Can you show us those sketches? Can you talk us through it?
Yeah, sure. Great. I recalled the best I could from memory. I'd say the first several are the ones that I remember the clearest.
Wow. And
I tried to get as much as I could, but these are as close as I can pull from memory what I saw. What was odd about them is how they were the symbols weren't solid. They were shifting between these symbols. So there was probably about, I would say 6 or 7 in a row, and they were transitioning between, they would just phase in and out at different times, like alternating. They had asked us again what we thought, if we noticed anything odd, and everything about this was odd. But I didn't mention to them that I saw the symbols at the time.
This special Gaia report wouldn't be complete without speaking with Jaime Maussán, who led the high-profile Buga Sphere press conference, bringing together international scientists, eyewitnesses, and policymakers. Through his influence, a landmark multidisciplinary effort was launched to study the sphere and explore the possibility that it may involve advanced, anomalous technology.
Jaime, thank you for doing this interview, and congratulations on a really successful press conference.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much.
I came in as a skeptic, but I feel like I'm leaving as a believer.
You have to, because we have an object, and according to all the scientific investigation, it's an object that presents very advanced technology. That's one thing. The other is that we have the evidence, the videos that recorded these objects. One of them flying around Buga and descending, and now we can talk about it. But you have this video where you can prove that if the video is real, then this sphere was flying. It means that it didn't have terrestrial technology. And that's a very good reason to make you a believer.
Of all the science that was presented, what do you think the audience should know the most about, or what would you like to highlight?
Well, I think something that wasn't mentioned specifically in the conference, and I think was the most important thing, is that these spheres are real sensors. It means that they are here to know everything about us. We found that the sphere has fiber optics around the equator, and that fiber optics is used to really know everything about us. It's fiber optics that can see at night, can see in the ultraviolet, in the infrared, and it means that they have all the information they need from us. And that these spheres are real sensors that are spying on us. I don't think for the bad reasons. They know everything about us. After I talked to Dr. Stephen Greer, I found that the fiber optics that they found, his scientists found these fiber optics, but they realized that they are not connected into the sphere through wires or cables. And that's amazing because they are connected through the same structure of the sphere. It means it's a technology far away from us. We have the fiber optics, and probably these fiber optics came from UFOs in the 1940s. We know that through Philip Corso. Mm-hmm. But now we know that this fiber optics is even more advanced because it's integrated into the object, and it's something that we are going to try to learn how it's done. But that proof by itself would make real that this object is not from Earth.
So right now, the fiber optics we're seeing in the sphere, there's nothing like that anywhere on Earth.
We have fiber optics, right, but our fiber optics, you need a wire, and this wire needs to be always in one piece. If you cut it, then you lose the light, and then you cannot have the information in the other side. But in this kind of fiber optics, they are just like sensors in the holes around the sphere, and now they are integrated into the structure, and it means that it's something very different. That also is something very different. It's what is inside the sphere. It looks like a jar. It's a device, and this device probably creates the energy for the sphere to levitate. We know that this sphere levitates through static. We don't think now that this kind of spheres levitate through anti-gravity. It means that all this time we thought that UFOs were able to neutralize gravity, and that's why they were able to float. But now we know that probably through this sphere that they use a very a stronger energy. Electromagnetic energy is so much stronger than the gravity. It means that I think we gave a step forward. And that brings me to probably what is the most important thing with this sphere. It's in the hands of civilians.
Yes.
For the first time ever, something like this is not in the hands of military. It's not in the hands of governments. It means that if we are able to investigate, if we find the resources, if we find the scientists, very, very soon, all this technology will be available for human beings, for humanity. This could change our future, not just accepting
that there is another presence, that there are other beings here, but also to allow us to have this kind of technology.
I love it. So what's next with the science? Where are you at now?
We're going to try to find out to know exactly how it works. We're going to try to find out how it levitates. We know, for example, that this sphere can change the hardness of the structure. We know it changes the temperature of the structure, what it means, all that, and why it does that. You know, why the sphere, when it came down, weighed 2 kilos, and then 6 kilos, and then 9 kilos, and then 10 kilos. We need to know. We have some ideas how this happens, but we need to know for sure.
A lot of people out there are saying, why don't you just cut this thing in half and see what's inside?
Never, ever, over my dead body.
Why?
No, because if you do that, you destroy it. You destroyed all of this just to look inside. Try to find a way to look inside without hurting the sphere. The sphere is going to be kept as is forever, at least until I die. If someone after I die wants to cut it, I won't be able to stop it. But from now on, I mean, the sphere will stay as it is.
Are there any other tests that they're doing right now?
Mr. Greer took samples of the metal. They are going to try to find if the isotopes inside the metal are from Earth or from somewhere else. And the carbon-14 analysis to know how old it is are two very important details that probably in the next few weeks we will have more information about that.
After wrapping my interview with Jaime, I returned to the hotel and sat down for dinner. But almost immediately, something unexpected and deeply unsettling was already in motion. An incident that raised new questions and suggested that someone, somewhere, was already trying to take control of it.
You and I were both down there together.
Yes.
I believe you flew out right when this happened.
Yeah.
I was at the hotel across the street from the facility.
Yeah.
But two men, I've seen them on security footage now, showed up dressed as policemen and tried to take the sphere. Well, what do you think of that? Is that, one, unusual, or is that exactly what we should have expected in this situation?
A sphere like this, if it's anything like what people think it is, you know, of being some anomalous object that is actually flying around without any kind of means of propulsion or anything, that it's worth a lot of money. And so for a couple guys, even a few guys, to come up with the idea, why don't we dress up like, you know, law enforcement people and pretend we're coming here to take it for the government, and maybe we can get away with it.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't mean that it's some kind of government plot. Or else they would have been a lot better at it, probably.
Right.
You know, and it's so I assume that that's primarily what it was. The American government comes in to take something, they come in and take it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and they hit you with force, and that they've rehearsed it, they know how to do it. You know, and it's like, you know, Mission Impossible, and they'll come and get it.
When these objects crash or people get them in there, when people have these objects,
They come and get them.
they come and get it, and it's
Yeah,
just a
that's
whole
right.
different
And
thing.
they come and get them in Mexico.
Yeah.
You know, they've come in and gotten a whole craft in Mexico. They flew across the border. A whole team of special forces went in and took the craft and loaded it up and took it away and told the Mexican government to piss off. You know. So I mean, they're not above that stuff, but that doesn't mean that was they.
Right.
In fact, it suggests that it wasn't they, or else there wouldn't have been such a muffed job.
Okay, so maybe the guys who showed up to try to grab this sphere weren't from one of these legacy programs. But if it was the real deal, don't you think there'd be an attempt at some point? Or has Jaime done such a good job getting it and putting it out publicly so quick that they can't put their hands on it now?
I'm sure there's an awful lot of conversation going on about this, you know, inside the legacy program. Because if there is any chance that it is either of extraterrestrial origin or is the product of some reverse engineering from some extraterrestrial technology, our national security state people are going to be extremely interested in this. Okay? But to date, they've not opened up any kind of direct conversation with us. They haven't contacted us and say, look, you know, this is Colonel blah blah, you know, from the XYZ agency, and you know, we want to open a dialogue about this thing. We want to be partners with you in trying to find out what it's all about, et cetera. It's a shame that they have so misused authority that's been given to them, discretionary authority in the past, that they have to be distrusted. Because I'd be inclined to say, okay, look, as long as we can figure out, we're not opposed to sharing information with you about this, but the fact is I'm not willing to share information with them about it.
Oh, okay.
So the bottom line is that, we're going to conduct the investigation of this, the scientific analysis of it, in as thorough and as professional a way as we can. We're going to make it available to everybody, the whole human family. Say, look, here's what this is. We don't know what it is yet, but you're going to see us conducting the investigations. You're going to know what we know when we know it. And if it turns out to be something of that category, then so be it. That's what we're going to find out.
Well, this is very exciting. This feels like this could be potentially the beginning of the people's disclosure, something that we've all been fighting for a very long time. Danny, thank you for everything you've done throughout your whole career, but specifically disclosure and UAP. So thanks for being here today. We really appreciate your time.
I appreciate the opportunity.
This investigation is far from over, and many questions remain unanswered. The object's origins, its purpose, and how it was made are still under review by those continuing the analysis behind the scenes. Is the Buga Sphere a probe, a surveillance device, a piece of forgotten history, or something far more advanced? Whatever it is, the sphere didn't just fall, it sent a signal. And to those paying attention, the implications are clear. Something highly unusual has entered the story of our world. As new findings come to light, we'll keep you updated on whether this is a product of human innovation or quite possibly not of this world. I'm Josh Golombeski, and this is Cosmic Disclosure. Thank you for watching.